Hey everyone, okay, so let's talk about Child's Play 2. Now, this movie, Child's Play 2, I think this is my favourite instalment of the Child's Play franchise. I mean, of course, I really like the first one, you know, but this one, for me is just so much better. I mean, I have the first one on DVD and I've just recently got the second one on Blu-ray because I remember looking on the message boards on the Internet Movie Database. There was, I think for a long time, there's been a big demand for this second movie to be released on Blu-ray, and now it finally has, and they've done a really good job of, the picture and sound is great on it, so it's been worth the wait in that respect. So they've done a really good job of remastering it for Blu-ray. You can really see the difference. And I like I say, I've just got done watching it, and it was an absolute blast to see that movie again, because I first saw it a couple of years ago when it was on TV, and since first seen it, straight away I really loved the movie, and the more I thought about it, I was thinking, yeah, I mean, the first movie's good, but I think this one is that bit better, because it's such a fun movie. And the thing about it is, again, it's over so quickly, because of course in true 80s and 90s slasher movie style, it's only 84 minutes long, including end credits. So before you know it's over. It's not a long sit by any means, because obviously sometimes that can be a bit daunting, if you've got a movie that's a full 2 hours long. You think, well, maybe that's a bit much, but with this one, not at all. So yeah, let's just dive right into it. I mean, so Child's Play 2, Chucky's back and he's meaner and badder than ever before. Brad Dourif's great, isn't he, doing the voice of Chucky? And it's one of those characters, like, you couldn't have anyone else doing the voice of Chucky, in the same way that you couldn't have anyone else other than Robert Englund playing Freddy Krueger. You just couldn't do it, and obviously the makers of these movies obviously realise this, because Brad Dourif voiced Chucky in all the sequels to Child's Play, and Robert Englund played Freddy in all the sequels to Nightmare on Elm Street, and thank God they did, because, that would have been a major mistake if they tried to replace those guys. So yeah, Child's Play 2, Chucky's back, and that's how the movie starts. The movie starts with at the Good Guy Factory, of course, and you get the title card, Child's Play 2, that awesome Lethal Weapon style 2 that they use. And yeah, that's the opening title sequence. They've recovered the original doll from the end of the first movie, which had been shot, torn to pieces and burned. And basically, they're refurbishing it. They're taking the remains and cleaning it up to create a new good guy doll. So hey, this movie's pro-recycling by the looks of it. Yeah. And we find out, because we're introduced to the executives in charge of the company, and basically this is all in response to the events that happened in the first movie. The stockholders are getting very nervous. Fortunately, the police are trying to cover it up though, and we find out that Andy and his mother, Andy's now in foster care, and his mother is under psychiatric evaluation, and they've put this doll back together again and gone, they're gonna go through it and do various tests and investigate to see what the problem could have been, you know, because of course those being rational guys, you know, we're not believing that story that the doll got possessed by an evil spirit or a serial killer. No, it must be a genuine malfunction, because they even say, you know, they think someone at the factory must have messed with the voice of the doll, you know, to make the, you know, any other possibility other than the possession, you know, other than what actually happened. And right away, things go completely wrong when adding the finishing touches to the doll. The machinery malfunctions. One of the guys dies, quite spectacularly so, gets electrocuted, and there's a huge explosion which sends him flying through this two-way mirror. Yeah, anyway, he's dead, you know, but, you know, no one is in the least bit suspicious, but then again, why would there be? And basically, so Chucky's been put back together again. He's looking great. He's in great shape now, you know, and he manages to escape from the factory. And one of the guys at the factory has Andy or Alex Vincent. They have his file there, you know, they're looking at, you know, and Chucky manages to get a look at that, and he tracks down the foster, you know, he gets the number for the foster service, calls them, and finds out where Andy is now living. And he goes over there, and obviously Andy's living with Jenny Agutter's character and her husband. Now, Jenny Agutter is lovely in this movie. She's a great foster parent. She's really good. She's lovely to him. I can't say the same about her husband in this movie. My God, he is not foster parent material. He is given Andy and the other, you know, the teenager who's in their care as well, Kyle. He gives them two such a hard time. You're thinking, why the hell has he been a foster parent? He is not cut out. He is not cut out for this at all. Jenny Agutter is. She's fine. She's absolutely fine. She's a great foster mum. Not him though. He's not a. He's a bad foster parent, because. Honestly, because that's how it starts. Like he wasn't comfortable. He didn't really want to adopt Andy, but Jenny Agutter just took a shine to him, and she pushed her. You know, well, let's give it a try. And as soon as they get him, Andy back, you know, take Andy home, he wastes no time at all laying down the law. The foster dad. Oh yeah. Like because they've got a load of antiques around the house, and while Andy's looking around, he goes to touch one of them, and straight away, no, rule number one, don't touch the antiques. Jesus Christ, you know, what the hell is this? What the hell is wrong with this guy? And again, this continues, because when Jenny Agutter takes Andy up to his room. And he's looking, you know, she says, all these toys are yours now, and there's some in the closet. And he goes in the closet, sees this awesome skateboard. Anyway, he reaches up to take that down, and then there's one of the just happens to be a good guy doll in that damn closet. But you know, they explain, you know, we've had various kids, we've adopted various kids over the years. You know, we lose track of the toys that we've bought for them, and obviously just they happen to own a good guy doll. But obviously this sets Andy up, and it doesn't help that the doll falls right down on him, you know, right on the camera, you know. Yeah, so that's the thing about the early part of this movie. Obviously we know Chucky's back, and he knows where Andy is, and he's going to come after him, but building up to it, Chucky hangs over the early part of this movie like a shadow, and that's just an example, you know. And also, I remember on the way home, the passer, good guy truck, you know. So, you know where this is going, you know. Just it's basically saying Andy can't move on from this, you know. It's everywhere he looks, he sees something Chucky related. But yeah, he's freaked out by this doll, and he goes to run out the room, and then there's foster dad comes in and says, rule number 2, no running in the house. Jesus Christ, this kid is 10 years older than me. I think he might be more 8 or 9. You know, let him be a kid, for Christ's sake. You know, you should have expected this. And honestly, I don't know what... Jenny Agutter must be really convincing to talk him into adopting. You know, honestly, when you think about their backstory, it must have been her idea to adopt and be a foster parent. It wouldn't have been his. He probably... When she brought it up, he probably thought, Jesus Christ, this is good. Why does she want to do that? Jesus Christ. But I think it's hinted at a couple of times throughout the movies, you know, a couple of times throughout the movie it's hinted that I think they're unable to have children themselves, so maybe that's what it was. Maybe he didn't mind at first, you know, adopting a kid or even a second kid, but then obviously it's escalated out of his, you know, like, oh Jesus, I didn't sign up for this. So yeah, right away he's established as a really unlikable character. I mean, he's up there with Elijah Wood's Uncle Wallace in The Good Son, you know. Extremely frustrating. Yeah, but again, you've got to love Alex Vincent in this movie who plays Andy, because obviously he's the star of this movie. You know, obviously he was in more. Obviously he had a lot to do in the first movie, but he was in more of a supporting capacity. The focus was, you know, because obviously he had Chris Sarandon there, and obviously his, you know, his mum. But in this movie, I mean, yeah, you have Kyle, the heroine of this movie, and she's good. She's really good. You know, she has a lot to do. But it's like I say, they're the main two in it, along with Chucky. So yeah, and even on the credits as well, he's the first name, starring Alex Vincent. Wow. But he does a great job. He carries this thing, you know, and he's, of course, he's adorable. You know, you really feel bad for this guy. But again, in these two movies, Child's Play 1 and 2, he goes through it, doesn't he? He just can't catch a break. And this, again, it continues all throughout this movie, because it's not long before Chucky tracks him down, because basically what happens is he sneaks into the house one night shortly after Andy arrives, and he takes the place of the other good guy doll that's already there. He smashes the thing's face in and buries it in the garden under the swing. So obviously that's why no one suspects a thing at first. And then obviously we cut to the following day, and there's Andy's looking at this doll, because obviously at first he didn't want anything to do with it, but obviously he's realised he thinks it's just an ordinary good guy doll, and that one was, but now Chucky's here, and he's having a look at it, and he's talking to it, and obviously it's, you know, reciting the generic dialogue that's been programmed into it, and he checks in the back and says, oh well, you know, it's got batteries in it, so it must just be an ordinary doll. So his fear sort of goes away for a while, but then that night, obviously, when it's all dark and quiet, Chucky finally takes his opportunity and ties him up and says, hey Andy, I bet you never expected to see me again, did you? And again, he, tries to perform that incantation to transfer his soul into Andy, but unfortunately gets interrupted by Kyle, who's sneaking back in from her night out. That's the recurring thing through these two movies. Every time he tries to perform this incantation and transfer his soul into Andy's body, he just gets interrupted again and again. Unlikely event after unlikely event. And obviously they continue this throughout this movie. And so, and then Jenny Agutter and her husband burst in and see Andy all tied up with a doll, and obviously he explains, it was Chucky, but again, much like in the beginning of the first movie, no one is believing him, no one is having any of this, especially the foster father, because he just grabs the doll and chucks it in the cellar, and you think, well, he's just signed his own death warrant. You don't fling Chucky about, because obviously he's gonna come back and he's gonna come back and kill you. Yeah, he just opens the cell door, chucks him down this flight of stairs, just onto the cold hard concrete below. Yeah, and so then the following day, it's Andy's first day at his new school. Oh no, shenanigans are gonna ensue here. Anyway, he gets on the bus. I remember, there's this bully on the bus. Jesus Christ, he's just sat there, and obviously Andy's looking for a seat. Takes one look at Andy, just shoves him out of nowhere. And then, but that's the end of the scene. No, doesn't say anything to him, just, shove. Andy goes, and looks as if I don't know what the hell that was, and continues to find his seat. But, we've only got 84 minutes. We've got to move quick. We can't establish, we can't go into detail. We can't have a series of events of him being bullied and badly treated at school. So, but then it cuts to him in class, and that same bully is sat behind him. So that shove on the bus was building up to the bully flicking him behind his ear in class. Oh no! Yeah, don't mess with this kid. Yeah, 90s bully. So yeah, that is because obviously the kid flicks on the back of Andy's ear. Andy turns around and says, well, will you quit it? Will you? And then, Andy's teacher, man, we got to talk about this. His teacher, I don't know what the hell she's doing. I don't know where the hell she thinks she is. Because, like I say, a class of, like 8 to, juniors, but the way she's going on, you'd think she was, like, honestly, she's unbelievable, because unfortunately she gets off. Chucky kills her, and, we're glad to see her go, but the way she's going on, like, laying down the law, she's so stuck up. And she's just unbelievably strict. Come on, you're teaching a class of 8-year-olds. There is no need to be that harsh. There is no need to be that strict. Honestly, it's like... Anyway, fortunately she doesn't last long. But you've probably seen the movie already, so you guys know where I'm coming from. You think, Jesus Christ, chill out, lady. And then they go for recess, and while they're on the break, Chucky sneaks into Andy's class and looks for the work he's just done, and he writes a quote as Jenny Agutter says, a quote-unquote obscenity on Andy's paper, which the teacher obviously finds when because obviously it then cuts to the end of the day and she dismisses the class. And again, chill out, because I want those tables spick and span before anyone leaves. Chill out! Jesus Christ, you'd think it was high school the way she's going on. You know, a class of unruly high school kids. They're 8-year-olds! Jesus Christ, calm down. Anyway, she finds Andy's work with this obscenity on, and obviously, again, she's not going to believe the doll did it. And she keeps him back for detention. Again, 8 years old, detention. Jesus Christ, overkill. Yeah, like I say, everyone else goes home. She keeps him back. It's, you know, face down on your desk. She goes out the room to make a call. Locks him in the damn room. But and then while he's locked in there, Chucky tries to kill him. Because when he went to put something away when he was packing up to leave, you know, he went over to this cupboard and Chucky was sat in there, and the teacher saw it and she didn't. No, apparently she's used to having dolls. Yeah. Do you have many good guy dolls laying around the school? Because she doesn't bat an eyelid. She just says, "Oh no, you're not playing with that during detention. No toys." And she takes it and locks it in the closet. And so obviously when she goes out, Chucky's brain on the closet door trying to get out, and fortunately Andy manages to escape through the window. Yeah, he has to crawl out the window because, like I say, there's nowhere else to get out of him because she locked him in. I think that's a touch much, locking an 8-year-old in a classroom. But fortunately he manages to escape through the window, and when the teacher comes back, so stupid. Obviously, the Chucky's still brain on the door to the closet. I don't know what the hell she's thinking, because she's having a go at Andy for this. She thinks it's him brain on the closet door. What the hell? She's locked that door. There's no way he could have gotten in there, but I guess it makes sense to her. Anyway, she opens the door and surprisingly, there's no one there. And she's... and then while she's looking in the closet, Chucky attacks her. Rather spectacularly. Shoves a basketball pump in her chest and just, you know... which sends her flying across the room, and then it beats her to death with a ruler in rather spectacular fashion, you know, accompanying music stings, because he gives her a good few whacks, and then it cuts to an exterior shot of the school, you know, focused on the window to the classroom, and he just hits you with there's a music sting, and it zooms out on each music sting. You know, but like I say, we're not sad to see her go. Like, you know, a really frustrating character, but again, fortunately she doesn't last long. So anyway, that night again, Andy getting such a harsh time, you know. Well, we got a call from his teacher today. He'd wrote an obscenity on his work, kept him back for detention. Obviously the foster father goes off on one at him for that. You know, Chucky is making... honestly, in this movie, Chucky makes Andy's life a complete misery. You know, it's such a shit, and like you say, you do feel sorry for him, because Alex Vincent in this movie is completely adorable. Again, like I said, he does a great job of carrying this movie. He really does, and like I say, Kyle is good as well. She's like a good supporting character, you know, really, like I say, a strong heroine. She's really good, and I think it's lit. So again, it cuts to later that same night, and Oh, because that's it. Because again, Andy tries to explain it wasn't me. Chucky did it, and then the foster father takes him over to the cellar door and shows him, look, Chucky's down there. You know, he's been here all this time. He hasn't. He hasn't. But again, try telling that to him. So later that same night, Andy's had enough now, and he arms himself with the knife and goes down into the cellar to confront Chucky. And anyway, Chucky jumps him from behind. They have a fight, and then it cuts upstairs to Jenny Agutter in her husband's bedroom, and the husband hears a noise and he comes down to investigate. And he comes down to the cellar and he sees Andy with this knife, and Chucky's disappeared. Of course, you guys don't know, Chucky can just disappear and reappear like that. And so, I don't know what the hell this, the foster father's problem, because he suddenly, he suddenly gets all nervous, goes, Andy, drop the knife. I don't know why he's getting so nervous. Andy wasn't going to do anything. I think, the father was in a pretty, either the father was, foster father was a pretty safe distance away from him. He was at the top of the stairs. But yeah, again, not in the slightest bit suspicious that something might be going on. But again, just they emphasise that through the movie, that he genuinely thinks Andy is, crazy. So obviously he doesn't trust him at all. But then we see Chucky's grabbed one like a pole, and as the foster father's coming down the stairs, he trips him, he takes his legs out, and it causes him to fall and break his neck. So the foster father's dead, and not a moment too soon, I might add, because again, another really frustrating character who fortunately gets bumped off. That's one of the things this movie has over The Good Son. Both frustrating characters, the foster father in this one and Uncle Wallace in The Good Son. At least the foster father in this one gets killed. Nothing happens to the uncle in The Good Son, which is, which is frustrating, because he's just a really annoying character to poor Elijah in that movie. But like I say, at least in this movie, gets the frustrating characters get some comeuppance. So the foster father breaks his neck and dies. Jenny Agutter and Kyle race down to see what's happened, to see the foster father dead. Chucky, of course, he's just gone into doll mode. He's turned off. Probably a poor choice of words, but yeah. And so obviously Andy's stood there, he's thinking, oh god, this is terrible, this is a disaster. Carl calls the police, and obviously Jenny Agutter races down, and she's crying, and blames poor Andy for this, yells at him, get away from me, poor Alex Vincent. Well, I'd love to know what she thought he'd done. I'd love to know why she was putting the blame on him. It's not his fault that her husband fell down the stairs and broke his neck. And you don't have to be, you don't have to be any sort of expert to work that out. Yeah, I mean, there's no way that... It's so stupid, and then even worse, this leads to following that. Obviously, the police arrive and the ambulance arrives and they take the husband's body away, and And while all this is going on, Jenny Agutter just races upstairs and just starts packing Andy's things, and she's had enough. She basically sends him back to the foster centre. I don't know why. He hasn't done anything wrong. But she even says, "Oh, if I'd listened to my husband, he'd still be here now. None of this would have happened." Andy didn't do anything. Yeah. But again, as good as this movie is, admittedly there are a lot of frustrating characters in this movie. So anyway, Andy goes back to the foster centre. They send him back, and the police finish going over the looking around the basement, and they leave, and obviously the ambulance leaves, and so it's just Kyle and Jenny Agutter and of course Chucky at this house now. And Andy says to Kyle before he leaves, "Don't let Chucky get you, and you've got to listen." And then he leaves, and then Kyle. Alex is a really major character in this movie. Kyle texts goes down to the cellar where the doll's still there, and just grabs it, and to her credit, she takes the doll outside and just throws it in the bin. She's obviously it's not. She doesn't destroy the thing, but she just throws it, get rid of the damn thing, and then she goes and sits on the swing, of course, underneath which is where where the other good guy doll's buried. And while she's going back and forth on the swing, she's kicking. She uncovers this doll. When a foot's kicking, as a foot kicks the mud, and she realises, oh god, Andy was right. She sees this doll with all its mushed in face, and she's like, oh no, I gotta do something about this. So anyway, she darts back over the trash can. Shocker, the doll's gone. Hear a thud upstairs. Look up to Jenny Agutter's window and think, oh no, Jenny Agutter's in trouble. And Kyle races back into the house. She arms herself with a knife and goes up there. And we go into Jenny Agutter's room, and Jenny Agutter is sat in a chair by a sewing machine. The sewing machine's going, and turn around, shocker, she's been killed. Jenny Agutter dies of the fatal off-camera disease in this movie, as the nostalgia critic would say. It really is, though, a fatal off-camera disease. Again, one of the name actresses in this movie dies pretty unceremoniously. Well, she doesn't even get a death scene. So anyway, thanks for coming, Jenny Agutter. And then Chucky jumps Kyle, and they have a fight. And Chucky manages to get the knife, and basically, you're gonna do what I tell you, alright? And she drives them over to the foster centre where obviously Andy is now, and set the fire alarm off there to evacuate the whole place. And as the whole place is evacuating, Andy is stopped by Kyle and Chucky, and the woman in charge of the foster centre gets involved, and they all go into her office, and they because she realises, Kyle set the alarm off, and then obviously they have a confrontation in the office, and then the woman in charge of the foster centre gets killed off pretty unceremoniously. because she grabs hold of the Chucky doll, and then Chucky suddenly becomes animated and pulls this knife out of her and stabs the hell out of her. And she falls onto the photocopier, and then she's dying like, ugh, and then falls to the floor, dead. And then obviously a lot of photocopies of her dead face. Just again, really great. There's a lot of dark humour in this. Well, of course, I mean, it's a slasher movie about a killer doll. It's self-aware. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And of course, some of Brad Dourif's one-liners are really fun. Yeah, it's again much like Freddy Krueger. Chucky isn't, they're not the quote unquote straight men of slasher movies. I mean that high and mighty title goes to someone like Michael Myers, of course, the straight man of the slasher, because even Jason was pretty goofy. But like I say, Freddy and Chucky were obviously the humour. Yeah, they were the Roger Moores of this horror movie slashers. So yeah, so she dies rather spectacularly, and obviously all the take a photo. Yeah, take one of these photocopies of my dead face if you like. There's plenty of them, because she just laid there. More and more copies are getting printed off. So when Chucky kills her, Kyle makes a grab for Andy and tries to get out the room with him. Chucky closes the door, like Kyle gets out, and then Chucky closes the door on her, so it's just Chucky and Chucky and Andy left in this office now. And again, so they escape, and Kyle's in hot pursuit after him, because Chucky and Andy are essentially doing the Luke Skywalker and Yoda thing from Empire Strikes Back. You've got Chucky on Andy's back with the and Andy's carrying him, and obviously Kyle's chasing after him, and the chase leads them back to the Good Guy Doll Factory. So the movie goes full circle. We start at the Good Guy Doll Factory with Chucky being reassembled, and then obviously that's where the climax of the movie takes place. And I do think this is the highlight of the movie, as it should be. The climax that takes place at the factory. It's really fun. I suppose you could say it was kind of reminiscent of the first Terminator, but yeah, it's a really good, because obviously Andy and Chucky go to the factory, and obviously Kyle follows them, and while they're Chucky knocks Andy out and again goes to perform that incantation again, to transfer his soul into Andy's body. And finally, he manages to complete it. He manages to finally complete this incantation, but unfortunately it doesn't work. So when he finally gets through it, and boom, sorry Charles, no luck I'm afraid, because of course he's been in the Chucky doll, his spirit's been in the Chucky doll for too long, and obviously he just loses it at that point and says, well, I'm gonna kill you anyway, Andy. And then fortunately Kyle arrives to save the day, tips a whole load of Chucky Good Guy doll boxes on him. Brad Dourif's voice, what the hell? Gets crushed under a load of boxes. And then obviously Kyle and Andy make a run for it, they're trying to escape from the factory, and obviously Chucky in hot pursuit. Yeah, because it's a really fun chase, because obviously they go through the factory, and then they're going along conveyor belts, and again, the poor factory, the poor supervisor of the working in the factory, you know, along like the conveyor belts and the production line, because there's a big pile up on one of the conveyor belts, and obviously he has to go and fix it. And while he's there, Chucky ambushes him, you know, slashes him with his knife, and it's on the particular belt where the dolls get their eyes put in, so you know where this is going. Chucky slashes him, he falls back, the eye gets injected with these eyes. My God, there's some genuinely cringeworthy moments in this movie, cringeworthy death scenes. It really does get graphic. I think this one is more, Child's Play 2 is more graphic than the first one. Yeah. And again, even with the things that happen to Chucky at the end, though, because obviously with him turning human, you know, obviously bleeding from his nose, and when he gets, like, because there's a bit where he gets his hand trapped in him, you know, when he's pulling himself free, the hand just gets pulled off, and, you know, blood spurts out, and you can see all the... It's graphic, man, and... because obviously there's that bit when he loses his hand, he shoves the blade of his knife in there to, you know, and that is, I think that's one of the most cringe-worthy moments. That, cause, Jesus Christ, that looks painful. But that's one thing we've got to mention is, you know, when you think about it, it is really impressive, the Chucky doll, you know, the fact that it was all done with an animatronic doll. You know, there was obviously no CGI involved. You know, it makes a nice change from you know, modern movies. It's, you know, it's nice that, you know, and it makes it all the more impressive and fun to watch when you think this was all done with an animatronic doll, and you know, like I said, it's so impressive and it's so much fun to watch, because you guys that are fans who followed the series probably already know, you know, you've looked at the trivia, but the amount of time it took to film these movies, you know, doing take after take, you know, trying to get the doll to move correctly, you know, trying to get the animation of it right, you know, and obviously the times when the doll had malfunctioned. But it's really, you know, it's nice to see them, you know, it's nice to see a movie again that's all practical, because obviously I completely agree that practical effects are better, you know, like I think this is a good example, and also you know, John Carpenter's The Thing as well. Yeah, but again, because it's surprising how well the animatronic doll is done, because there's, you know, so much detail, and they do a good job of making it pretty lifelike. Because even down to the subtle facial movements as well, it's really well done. You know, I mean, you can tell they cared. You know, you can tell they wanted to do the best job possible, and it shows. You know, you've got to love that. You've got to love the movie for doing that. The amount of time and effort put into the doll itself, because I think with this sort of movie, you know, it all hinges on the doll. You know, whether or not the audience is gonna buy this doll. You know, it needs to look good, and it needs to be lifelike, and it needs to be convincing, and to pull it off perfectly. And like I say, especially doing these chase sequences and action sequences as well. And so, of course, during this climax, Chucky takes a hell of a beat. Like I say, again, the first movie has nothing on this. Like I say, again, he gets torn apart. He gets trapped in the conveyor belt and gets things like shoved into him and stuck into him and hammered into him. You know, and there's a scene as well where Andy tips turns this pipe on, which is filled with all like boiling hot liquid, you know, and Chucky gets caught up in that. You know, he's a complete mess at the end of this movie, completely disfigured, unrecognisable from this good guy doll we're so used to seeing. And then, of course, it finally destroy him. Well, Kyle is the one who finally destroys him. She sticks this tube in his mouth, you know, and and then the damn doll's head explodes. The head just flat out explodes, you know, because obviously what's coming through this pipe just filling the head up, and the pressure just boom. You know, like in Big Trouble in Little China, you know, and when the guy explodes, same sort of thing. I don't think he's gonna stop. But again, it's absolutely brilliant. You know, you get a chuckle at the, you know, you don't take this movie seriously, and that's reflected in the death scenes as well. Yeah, they're cringeworthy, but there quite often is the case of that humour to it. And yeah, again, another movie where as soon as the doll's dead, we saved the day, job done, because they killed the doll and then finally managed to escape from the factory, and we cut to credits. Yeah, because again, at 84 minutes long, this movie doesn't have time to waste. But yeah, so that's Child's Play 2. You know, they kill the doll for a second time, they save the day. But like you said, you know, you talk about sequels, and you know, you've got to applaud the screenwriters of this movie, because after the first one, you'd think there is no way they could bring this doll back. But hey, they found a way, guys. They found a way of bringing this doll back. But no, I really like Child's Play 2. I do like the first one as well, but I think the second one is my favourite of the Child's Play movies. But it's so much fun. I mean, I'm glad I got the Blu-ray. I'm glad I got, you know, it's a Blu-ray that I've been after for a long time. I'm glad to finally have got it. And like, just watching it earlier was just so much fun. But that really is my highlight of the movie. The end climax at the doll factory. Yeah, because again, it's there are some genuinely tense moments, you know. But yeah, really good, you know. And I was surprised to read though, 'cause, you know, that when this movie came out, there was a lot of hate for it. You know, and obviously when you look at the ratings on IMDb, they're not necessarily the high. I think it's about 5.6 now on IMDb. You know, but you can't hate these movies. But hey, you know, some people, you know, everyone has different opinions, because obviously the first movie was pretty well liked, but when this second one came out, I can't understand why people hate it though, because I like it. I like it. And I think certainly as time's moved on, you know, it's developed a cult following, and the fact that there's been a demand for a Blu-ray release, you know, proves that. And I'm glad we finally got a Blu-ray release, because it looks great. It looks and sounds great. And like I say, I'm really happy with it. But yeah, like I say, I love this movie, and it's great. And again, because that's the sort of thing I like, you know, when they've had the climax, I like it just to wrap up quickly and not waste any time. And this movie does that. Like I say, they finally kill Chucky, they escape, they get out of the factory, and then they're just walking away, and the credits scroll, and that's it. 84 minutes. Again, that's another thing that makes me like this movie. It's only 84 minutes long. Because I mean, you know, I don't dislike long movies. There are a lot of long movies that I like. I mean, I'm a Lord of the Rings guy, you know, and also, yeah, I really like the movie Gettysburg from 1993, the longest official American movie in history, 4.5 hours long. So I like long movies, but there's sometimes where I just, you know, fancy a short movie like, you know, there's this one, Child's Play 2, Only God Forgives, that's a pretty short, Dread, that's a pretty short movie, um, you know, so that's another thing I really like about this, is it's only 84 minutes long, but it's really awesome, you know, and I think I'm gonna wrap this up because, like I say, I don't think we need to say anything other than that. But it's a really good movie, you know, and it's got that 90s magic to it, of course, which you've got to love. So that basically brings this to a close. And guys, I'd like to thank you for watching again, and I hope if you're a fan of this movie you agree with the points that I've made, and if you haven't seen this movie, that again this has sparked your interest, uh, because I think, you know, if you can't go wrong with this movie, you'll enjoy it. You know, if you like slasher movies, uh, you'll like this one. You know, or even if it's like 90s horror movies, you'll like this. But yes, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this review, and I'll see you next time. Thanks everyone.